So I have a question for you. Why can't my app look completely different from the normal apps?
Welcome to the App Secrets Podcast, where we're all about helping non-techies get apps designed, built, and marketed. And now your hosts, the superstar developers, the UX and product maestros themselves, the app marketing gurus. It's Francis Beasley and Darren David Taylor.
Why can't my app look completely different from the normal apps? And by normal, I mean, you know, the ones that people use every day. Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
Probably as a founder of a small company, your priority is just getting something out of the door both quickly and as cheaply as possible.
I mean, I agree. I totally agree. But also, you know, those companies are primarily app companies. That's where a lot of their popularity has stemmed from. And they've been doing it for years. Like the amount of money that goes into these apps. Okay.
So the best solution that you can take here is to use what are known, or what we'll call from now on, are the Apple standard controls, or even a very small subset of those, which are the really simple, most used Apple controls. And I think you can help me with this, Francis. I think I would limit those to, tables, which are lists. So they're called lists in Android as well. Buttons, labels, maybe text fields. I think in a really simple app, most simple apps, you don't really need to add much text, do you?
If you're going to do a sign up or something, you probably will. But you can do sign up with Facebook now.
Yeah, I think once you go to the realms of this is an app that takes text, it's less of a consumer app. It's a consumable app. Where by consumable app I mean an app which readers just consume media. Once you start entering text, it's more of a utility app where you're actually doing work.
Exactly,
like contacts and stuff like that. You'll find that most smaller founder apps are just reading data.
Mm-hmm.
So
I mean, the amount of times I've entered text on something like Instagram, just a comment.
Yeah. So that's it, really. It's just those standard controls, and obviously in iOS and Android, really, on Android you've got the back button. On iOS you've got a navigation bar at the top, which allows the user to go back to a previous screen. So obviously,
I mean, I'd also use like a tab bar as well. You know.
Of course, yeah.
You know, that's quite a nice way of setting up your navigation system. And a lot of those apps that we mentioned, say Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, they all use the tab bar now. I mean, they've gone full circle completely, and they're now back on Apple standard controls. So
the tab bar is the bar at the bottom of the screen on iOS, which is usually 3, 4, or 5 tabs on there, which represent specific areas of functionality in your app that are completely distinct from one another. So on Facebook you'll have the feed and then a profile. I forget what's on the others, but basically
messaging,
distinct areas that don't interoperate. And the good thing with using a tab bar is it enables you to do one area to get you going without a tab bar, and then once you start adding extra areas of functionality, you can use the tab bar to add those. So it really does, and as well from a technical level, it separates the code that sits beneath that into different areas as well. So it
does, yeah.
I mean, do you remember that app we worked on where the founder wanted interoperation between the tab bar? Yeah, we had to say no to that one, didn't we? You don't know about that story, do you? I don't think we'll put that in. No, don't
forget about that story. What story is that?
No, he wanted it so when you select something on one screen, it affects the behaviour on another. So what you won't ever have on a tab bar is when you change one thing on one.
It's just no good.
Yeah, you won't. So effectively, you have to think of these as pages in a book, or channels on a television that are completely different than another, or different tabs
just
on
like
a website.
Tabs on a browser. Right.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Tabs on a browser. So that's key on that. But yeah. So the first one we mentioned there was, I think it was the first one I mentioned, was table views. Now, the simplest example of that probably is the Apple Contacts app, which is just a list of people. So that's what we mean by a table. It's cells that go down. They're called cells. So each cell will have an item of information. So in the case of the Contacts app, that's repeated repeated types of cells, isn't it? So you've effectively got one person underneath another person.
Yeah.
Whereas,
and I like this, as well, because you can as well look at the Contacts app, and it can be as simple as that, right?
Yeah, that's right. And I think you would, wouldn't you? So, for example, if like you look at something like even Amazon, that's pretty much repeated. So if you search for an item, that's just many items, isn't it? Even though it's quite custom.
Right. I was going to say if you're searching for a hotel on like bookings.com or hotels.com.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
They just use the same. So it's still a table view. Yeah. It's just a list of stuff. And you can take that through to Facebook uses that, Instagram uses that.
But Facebook does it to display differing types of information. That's the key I was going to get to. And
same with Instagram, yeah. You can do different types of media. But I mean, ultimately, that's still a table view.
So the key
shows
advantage,
the power of it.
So there's a couple of there's many advantages of using a table view. So the first one is you get automatic, like different devices. Doesn't matter how big the screen is or how tall the screen is. It's just going to work because you can scroll up. So you don't have to restrict the height of the interface because you can just scroll up the screen. So that's a good point. Another one is it's a really nice way for users to just browse information. They're really used to scrolling up the screen, and it's just like a one-handed operation, and it's really easy to do. For example, with Facebook, so that's like a browse. So obviously, there's differences in these behaviours. In Facebook, you're browsing and like consuming again, whereas with the Contacts app, you're searching for something. But it's the same sort of thing. You can just scroll up and down. It's a really easy way to interact with an app. Obviously. You can, well, not obviously, but what you can do is at the top of the table view, you can have a search bar, which is really good. For example, if you had a shopping app such as Amazon, you can type something in there and just filter the results underneath, and then that gives you that functionality of being able to filter things.
Right, I was going to mention that because it's all built in.
Yeah,
I mean,
like
Apple really
that leads to what we were talking about. What we were talking about in the previous episode, wasn't it? Where this is something that only a developer knows, but it's just so fundamental that it can save. Using that design pattern rather than having another screen with search on can save the developer so much time because the user for that matter just entering text in on that table. That's why Apple designed it that way. Is because it's both easy for the developer, the user. It's just a really simple solution, isn't it? And in addition to that search, you can also have the buttons as well, can't you? What's the control thing where you can have the different tabs on it? That's like the Contacts app. Yeah, you can have like the to from thing on the top, and that's all built in, isn't it? So it's
yeah, it is. I mean, these are also these are really heavily tried and tested controls. Yep. Apple used them everywhere. They're on email. They're on. If you're looking for your web stuff, you can just have search bars in there. They've got them on the App Store. They've got them in, these are heavily tried and tested.
Well, actually, you mentioned the App Store.
Everyone is used to.
So the App Store does sort of deviate slightly. So I think correct me if I'm wrong, a couple of the screens on the App Store, they use what are called collection views, which are very much like a table view, but they don't span the whole width. So the cells don't span the whole width of the screen, which means you can do stuff like screens that look like grids. You can, or many more advanced concepts than that, but the basic collection view is grids. Now, even though they're relatively simple to do, it's so much easier to use a table view than a collection view. A collection view, being so versatile, also creates lots of little intricate problems and decisions that you have to make, whereas a table view is it's so solidified the design. Yeah, it's basically you can alter the height and you can change the design, but that's it, isn't it? You can have as many different cell types as you want. You can have different heights, but it's just you scroll up and down, and that's it. And it's so much easier to select a whole cell.
I do agree. If you were going for, say, like a really small company who just wants to get an app out there, it would definitely be, the most beneficial choice to go with. It also, especially as we talked in the last episode about decisions, right at the start of the app and your architecture that you decide with, table views, because of the way that Apple use them, heavily link into their store system on iOS, and so you end up with all of the animations are pretty much given to you for free.
Yeah, animations, for example, when cells are deleted or added. They
exactly right.
What you mean there is
they swipe in from the right. You can fade them. You can relaunch. When you go on, say, WhatsApp, for instance, and you've added a bunch of new contacts, you see them just appear, which is really nice to have, and that's all given to you for free.
Yeah, and whereas trying to do that yourself, I mean, you do get that free on a collection view, unless I'm wrong, but that's just
it uses the same system,
and that's a very good thing of collection views. But table view being so much easier, and and a lot. That's the thing. I always call them founders. Should we always call them founders? Designers, founders, people who pay developers. They do expect this. That's the thing, isn't it? People do expect this sort of behaviour. They expect all these niceties that they've seen on other apps. And if you had to develop that stuff yourself, which I have actually done before Core Data was around, and it's so difficult doing dynamic lists where an item's deleted and you've got to update it from a different place in the app and stuff. And so anyway, that's tables, isn't it? But there's even more advantages than that, because you've got stuff like indexes, like on the Contacts app, where you've got that little alphabeticalized thing on the right hand side.
Oh yeah, the little slider down the right hand side.
Don't see that much
goes
anymore.
A through to.
But you can customize those, so you can create your own versions of those. But yeah, so I think
often anymore.
On most apps, the way I'd probably design, there aren't many apps that don't fit along this philosophy. An app's either a full screen marketing app. For example, if Mercedes wanted an app to promote a car, it would probably be full screen. It'd have a lot of images on it. It might have a tab bar at the bottom for showing different areas, but that would be a very simple app. But if you've got an app that shows lists of any type of repeating data, which that is the majority of apps, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you want some other stuff in that app, the way I would do it is I would have a tab bar at the bottom, and the main screen would be some sort of feed screen with definitely. I would try and design the app in such a way that content changes on the feed screen to bring users back into the app. And that would be a key design in the app. And I would have another couple of screens, perhaps some sort of settings screen or something like that to the right if you needed it. Even though I don't like settings screens.
Contact Us or something.
And the good thing with doing it that way is it's so extensible. So given what you were saying in the last episode, when someone does need to expand this sort of app, if you've got a whole new area of functionality, like we're going to have something with a screen with a button on and you can win a prize, you can just add a new tab for a competition button and that's it. It's so easy to add new features. Whereas if you don't go down this step, you've got to find out a way of shoehorning that in, and it's like, well, we need this to be always visible to users wherever they are in the app. It's like, what you're going to do, have an icon at the screen all the time, and so you've got to make
I was just going to say that actually it floats it to the top. These tab bars, they're key things at the top.
Exactly, yeah.
And you get to say there's 5. That's or 4 or 3 or however many you want. I think 5 is the maximum currently on, say, iPhones. But the ability to have those right at the top of your app, basically.
Actually, at the bottom. You mean at the bottom of the screen, but above everything else on the screen. You mean, don't you?
Well, what I mean is, not physically like at the top of the screen. I mean, that they're floated to the top. They're really in your face, So if you do create a competition thing, oh, what's that? Competition. You don't have to have like a dropping banner or some sort of splash screen to kind of draw people to that. They will automatically go to that screen because it's there.
Well, we will.
That's what I meant.
I do know we have an episode planned, don't we, for wireframe, so we won't go too much into all those things because I think that's going into that territory. But the other elements we mentioned, so the main interaction on apps is buttons, and when you say buttons, it does sound like you're going to have some sort of like an OK button on a dialogue, but that's not necessarily what we mean, is it? So a button can be, for example, the text on the top of the navigation bar that says save or or OK or cancel if it's some sort of dialogue. But also
could be just looking at details.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, or buttons can be specific areas of the screen. For example, on the App Store, when you tap on an application in the list of apps, that's actually a button. Right. Or in that case, it could be an item of a collection view.
I mean, ultimately, it's more of a sort of. It's a more sort of call to action, isn't it? As opposed to say button.
So it's the term button. People sometimes think you mean a button like a square outline button with text on, and that's what always comes to my mind when someone says a button, which is funny. See, I know buttons aren't that, because buttons can be like an image of a footballer with, go and see his website on it, and it's like you tap that whole area of the screen, and that's actually a button, isn't it? But you don't think of it as a button, and that's. But that's a key navigation method of getting around. If you think how you get around in an app, we could have this list of things as the primary feed of the app, and then you select that. You tap on one of the cells, then you go to another screen with Buy Now on. That's a button, and then there could be
more information.
Yeah, more information and stuff like that. So there's buttons everywhere, and that's generally how you get around. It's either tapping a cell on a table or a collection view, or pressing a button. Just let me correct if I'm wrong. I can't think of any other ways. Even when you
there's a couple others. I mean, you can do tap gestures, but that's
but it's still. What I mean is to
effectively it's still a button. Yeah. It's a call to action. Yeah.
And then the others. I mean, one thing I think people don't make enough of, and it was one of the elements we missed out, was images on apps, because by adding strategically placed images, you can really just completely transform an app. So you could, whether the images are dynamic based on different types of data or whatever, by just adding images to an app. So you've got a blank screen, for example, that competition screen that we mentioned. You could have a competition screen with the most boring one would be some text in the middle that said roll the dice, and then you press it and it just shows your number 5. Oh, you've won. Boring, isn't it? Right. So a better way would be to have a picture of a dice in the center, or picture of a dice in the center that's got some nice text, but it's actually an image underneath. Roll the dice, and then you press it. It goes to a few images, like a little mini animation, and when it stops, it's like you've got like this like trophy that comes up, a little bit of an animation, like to just bounce it to the front, and it's like completely transform that into something that feels nice to the user. They feel like they've won something, rather than just changing some text. And that's effectively how you can make apps cheap, is by just using these standard controls that we've talked about into making something that is we will talk about this in the wireframe one. It's easy to navigate, easy to get around for the user, easy to find their way around, so you don't need to teach them. There's no onboarding required. It's just like, I understand how to use this app. That's point number 1, isn't it? Because we've used standard controls. We've used standard controls, so it's like, I know how to use the app. But that main thing is utilising these controls in such a way that you get really good value from the developer, rather than saying, what we want to do is we want to do something unique, something that's like, when they press this, it like all the pages flutter up. We don't want a normal tab bar. We want this tab bar that's got these bowls that bounce across the bottom of the screen, and it's ridiculous.
I mean,
no one cares, do they?
I've worked on a couple apps like that, and the problem is as well as, You try, you make something like that, and there's this custom control that you made, and it's really nice. I mean, it's taken weeks to build, but then what will happen is Apple will release a new version, and it will break it.
Yeah.
And you just have to spend weeks trying to find out how this custom control works again, because Apple will have changed the underlying code. That, of course, they don't care about your custom control.
Yeah.
They only care about their own controls. So what you're saying is to use the standard controls. I mean, Apple are never going to really break those.
Well, they
improved
them. That's the thing with iOS 8. They improved things, didn't they? They for navigation bars, they put all the transparency behind, and all the search bars changed, and and it's your app
and the buttons.
You rebuilt it was better. Yeah. As long as,
and that's just using standard. Like you don't have to do anything different. You just have to download the latest version, recompile it, ship it to the App Store, then you look.
Yeah. So I think that's the key, and I think this will become a bit easier to understand when we do talk about the wireframes. But it was definitely we needed to make this quite clear, because it's just a bit of a mindset thing that creating something. I think that's the key message, isn't it? Creating something that looks amazingly different is to absolutely no benefit to anyone, to either the user or the founder creating the company. It's just, there's no benefit.
Yeah, it's like a misnomer, isn't it?
Yeah. I think what they want is this thing. They want to create something. So you think about it. They've had these ideas. They've looked around the apps, because that's what people do, isn't it? They download apps from the App Store. They go, I like this from this. I like that from that. And the trouble is, what they're doing, they're looking at Hotels.com, they're looking at TomTom, they're looking at all these companies with ridiculous amounts of money. And it's like, yeah, you can have that if you've got the money and if you've got the time.
Right.
But,
I mean, these have been built for years.
Yeah, and users understand how to use them as well. I mean, I think, looking at something like Facebook, even though that does pretty much use standard controls, I think if you presented a user with that now that had never used Facebook, they wouldn't have a clue how to use it. I mean, Facebook in general, you can have these complex interfaces, but they only exist now is because they've been incremented gradually to get to that stage, so everyone just understands how to use them. Whereas if you presented,
they've kind of taught you along the way.
Whereas if I use Snapchat, I haven't got a clue, because I've never even used version 1, and now when I look at it now, I do have it, but it's like I haven't got a clue how to use it, because people have used these interfaces as they've evolved. And it's like if you weren't part of that process, you're ruined, aren't you?
Yeah.
And so that's making that assumption. It's making that assumption that people understand.
I had no idea how to turn those filters on.
No, you have to hold the screen. That's just absolutely ridiculous. But I suppose if you've always used
it took me like a year to find
other apps have started using that though. That's the funny thing. And it's like, yeah, God, hide stuff away. But if people, that's fine. If you were doing a photo app with filters, I would probably want to do that, to be honest. But I wouldn't go and create a photo app with filters if I wasn't making a photo app with filters. Do you understand what I mean? I wouldn't want to use those hold down.
You wouldn't.
Yeah, I wouldn't do it.
You wouldn't want to take that to say hotels.com.
Yeah, hold down to look at the whatever to get a guided tour of the hotel. Yeah, and that's what people ask for, isn't it? They think, oh yeah, this will work. People know when they press this down, this is going to happen. It's like they haven't got a clue. It's you have to. People have to be guided then, and that creates this learning procedure. And it's no one wants to use an app they have to learn. Whereas using the standard stuff,
I really feel that if you have to use if you have to bring on a tutorial to teach people how to use your app. I mean, you've really made a mistake there.
Unless you're creating a tool like Photoshop or something, where that's fine because people are going to produce something from this and get some value from it. But if it's a consuming app, they want to enjoy it. That's what they want. They want to have it that's the consume, isn't it? Not learn. You don't go to learn an app. Oh, great!
Right.
I've learned
and the
how
problem
to use
is as soon as there's a learning curve, people don't want to feel stupid.
No, that's right.
They don't want to feel stupid. And so they're just going to come on, they're going to go, oh, I didn't know that was there. Like me with Snapchat. I didn't know it was there.
No.
I mean, I was just swiping right for ages, trying to find these filters.
Getting old, mate.
I mean, I know, right? And all these people are like, oh, you didn't know it was there. And so you just feel less inclined to use it because you're like, oh, yeah, something like that. And that's the problem, right? especially for small companies. They want to get people on board. They want to get people using it. Make it as easy as possible to get people using it.
Well, that's the cool thing, isn't it? I mean, getting into app design, it's just that one thing. It's the one thing, and it's like, what are we doing here? What are we trying to do? And it's like, make that the app. Don't do anything else. Don't deviate from it. Don't, use that term, trying to be clever. Don't try and be clever. It's just, you've got to create that. The users come. That's the thing, isn't it? It's like, what does the user come to the app for? It's like they want to do that one thing, and it's like, if you use the Apple standard controls, it's like probably going to be the easiest way for them to do that one thing, and the developers to create it, and to prove whether you've got an app that's worthwhile in any way. And if users don't like that, you've really got no hope, have you? Whereas I think if you create an app that's got this amazing UI and it doesn't work, you're probably going to think, oh yeah, we did the UI wrong. And it's like, well, no, you didn't. Well, you might have. You might have done the UI wrong. Your idea might be wrong. But I don't know. That's going off tangent anyway. We'll talk about them in the wireframe. I
think it's done.
Yeah. Are we done on that one?
It's nice that.
Should we talk about?
Yeah,
I do have something that's downloadable. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I do.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Sorry. So hang on. I'll say that now.
No, it's all right.
So Darren, I
no, you were too late. This is going to go in like this now.
You're too late.
All right. So yeah, it's at theappblueprint.com/ what am I going to call it, Francis? We'll do this in a minute. So it's at. Yeah. Wait there. So I do have something that you can download.
Blueprint.com/podcast.
Yeah, hold on. So I do have something that can be downloaded. No, you did interrupt me again. So I do have something that can be downloaded on this, and it's a list of the controls, and it also shows like estimates on the complexity for the developer. And it's got a list. It's got more controls in it actually than we've spoken about, but I do highlight the key controls that we've just mentioned, and that's at theappblueprint.com/standard controls. So that's it.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah. So we'll have to do another one, won't we?
Ace.
Yeah.
Join us next time for wireframes. That'll go on now, huh? Hang on. I've turned this all off.
The App Secrets Podcast, where we're all about helping non-techies get apps designed, built, and marketed. Check out the show notes and archives on theappsecrets.com.